Okay, well, welcome to our discussion today. We're going to talk about what I'll call risky situations. And we want this to be an open dialogue as always, so feel free to pipe in with your questions or comments. And especially you, Rasa, because you play a critical role with these risky situations that we're talking about here. Because as a supervisor, you are the front line. You're really the true human resource manager, because you're out there working day to day with the people, and you're aware of the situations that come up. And there's certain things that, depending on what's happening and what's going on out there, that we need you to coordinate with Rasa to make sure that they're done right and handled right, and that we capture the detail and we deal with each of these situations. So we're going to talk about various situations here today, and then how we want you to respond, what we want you to do with each of these. So. So the first one is what I will call possible family medical leave. So there's most of you have probably heard there's what's called the Family Medical Leave Act, where someone can have up to 12 weeks of time off to go take care of certain things, like having a baby. Maybe they're adopting a child, preparing to leave for military duty, either for themselves or someone else. Maybe they have to go take care of someone who's going in for surgery or has some serious medical problem, or maybe they have a surgery or problem themselves. One of the triggers for this is if someone's out for 3 days or more and it's medically related, that may be a qualifying event for family medical leave. And so what we need you to do, if you're aware of any of these situations that's occurring with an employee, they don't have to come to you and say, hey, I need family medical leave, or I need to, they may say, hey, I'm going to be gone. I'm going to go have a surgery, or my wife's having a baby, or I'm having a baby, or my son's getting ready to leave to military duty, and I've got to help him get ready. I need some time off. All of those are triggers that we want you, as soon as you're aware of those things, to notify Rasa. And then Rasa will take care of the legally required notification process and paperwork that we have to do in order to handle this situation correctly. And again, another trigger is if they're out for 3 days or more and it's related to some sort of a serious medical condition or whatever, they may or may not qualify for this, but we have a process we want to go through, and so we just need you to help us make sure that you're the eyes and ears. So if you hear something or see something going on that you suspect that there may be an event going on, we want you to notify us. Rasa, any comments on that? Anything that I've missed on there?
No, I actually, last month I sent out a training packet. It was about an hour long that went through most of this and went through, then there was a question-answer section for each little section of it too. So they should be kind of familiar with with what's expected. It's just that I think, I'm not sure we understand that the liability that we hold personally and as a company if we don't report.
Yeah, if we violate someone's Family Medical Leave Act rights, here's an example where we may violate that. If let's say you have attendance problems with someone, and you go in and you fire them because they're not attending work, and you didn't properly go through and verify why they weren't attending to work, and maybe they qualified for some excused leave, such as family medical leave, and we terminated them. They could then we create this situation where they could come back and take some sort of corrective action against the company. There may be fines, reinstatement, back wages, some different things that might come into play. So it is very critical. And so, like I said, they can have up to 12 weeks. Just a couple of quick points on here. Now, someone has to have been with the company at least 1 year before they'll even be eligible for this. We don't expect that you have to keep track of all of that kind of information. So if you hear the triggered event, go ahead and contact Rasa. She'll make sure of these other things. But they also have to be 50 or more employees within a 75-mile radius. So we may have some folks who are clear off in other areas that are outside of the realm of where they may be covered by that too. It can be for themselves or for their dependents, for their immediate dependents. And then it also can be intermittent. So it doesn't, so for example, you may have someone who has some sort of a serious medical condition, or maybe someone who's pregnant, and they can take intermittent leave throughout the year. They could say, hey, I need to exercise my FMLA rights, or they may not actually say that. They may just say, I need to take a week off because I'm having problems with my pregnancy, and that can be intermittent. So they can have a certain amount of a week here or there, a few days here and there. It's complicated, and that's why, like I said, you just be the eyes and ears when you hear that it's happening. That's a trigger for you to notify RASA, and then she'll take care of the details of tracking it and notifying them.
Yeah, and I think here, Ken, we need to understand that even though you may know you're less than 50 employees in your terminal, or you may know they've not been here a year, we still need to go through that paperwork to show that we've dealt with it. I mean, there's steps that we have to follow that tells them they're not eligible. So it's just not good enough to say, well, I knew we didn't have 50 employees, in, say, Bloomington with Barry. It's not good enough. If the issue comes up, we need to do the paperwork on it.
Excellent. Yeah. So someone has to actually qualify for it. First, they've got to meet these requirements. They have to apply. We'll go through a process. We'll have them submit in evidence and maybe medical records information. And then when they qualify, then we hold their same or similar job, pay and benefits over their time period of up to 12 weeks. And it can be longer than 12 weeks, depending on the situation. Like for a military situation where someone's hurt in military, or a family member, and they need more time than that, there can be there's an extended time period for that as well. So, okay, so that's the first risky situation. The next one I'm going to move to now is what I'll call a possible disability. So there's what's called the Americans with Disabilities Act that requires organizations to consider individuals with disabilities making reasonable accommodations to, either in the hiring process, bringing them on, hiring them, other employment decisions, or if they have some special situation that comes up. Now, that doesn't mean that we have to change the job for them. It doesn't mean that they don't still have to meet the essential requirements of the job. But if somebody has some sort of a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits one of their major life functions, there's a bunch of them here: walking, breathing, muscle, skeletal, respiratory, cardiovascular. It's a pretty big, long list. And they've changed some of the definitions of this where it's pretty easy to qualify. I mean, just about any medical condition that's going to be ongoing, could be could cause some grief and challenge for folks. So, so there may, and requests for accommodation don't necessarily have to be that they come to you and say, hey, I've got this disability problem. I'm requesting some accommodation. It may be that formal. Someone may actually come in and do that. Most of the time they don't, because they don't really fully understand this or understand the process. But at whatever point something is going on medically, physical or mental impairment, some sort of a condition, and it's impacting their job in some way, that would be a time to flag back again to RASA. So channel it back to her, and then she'll decide, guide the next steps from there. And there may be what we call an interactive process where we may approach the employee and talk to them about, going through, is this something that they may want to request some sort of accommodation for. We'll work closely, of course, with the supervisors. But again, your key role in this is that when you see some sort of a situation and it's impacting their job, bring it back to RASA. And then the last thing here is make sure any employment decisions you're making you have to look at it in terms of possibly making reasonable accommodations. So if you're hiring someone and you have someone that's pretty qualified except for maybe some sort of physical condition or whatever, that might be another time to channel it back to RASA to discuss, is this a reasonable accommodation? Can we make some accommodation for this person to help them be eligible for the job? Ross, anything else you would add in on disabilities?
Nope, I can't think of anything else.
Okay. So the next one, and this one has to deal with accidents and injuries. And I think everybody's probably already pretty familiar with this. I just bring it up because it's another risky situation. We have to deal with, as a company, we have to meet OSHA requirements of safety and risk. We also, as a company, if there's injuries on the job, then that's workers' comp cost, downtime, and problems that occur. Not to mention we care about our people. We just don't want someone to get hurt, period. So I apologize. I've got someone trying to come in on, let me just do this here. Okay. So with this, we want to make sure that all accidents and injuries are reported. And it's just, it's obvious that we even need to know, we even want to hear about use your judgment. If it's a Band-Aid cut, that's fine, they'll just deal with that. But it's good to know, even if there's patterns of consistent things where people are getting hurt and injured, so that's channeled back. And Rafa, who does that go to? Does that go to, is that Frank or?
Mostly it's going to Frank.
Okay. Okay, so this kind of thing would go to Frank. If he's not available, then take it to RASA, as a backup. But we need to know anytime that, Frank needs to know anytime there's an accident or injury that's going on. Same thing if there's risky, unsafe situations. If you're aware that, something's unsafe with a vehicle or whatever it may be in the work environment, let someone know. The other key thing that you play a role in is training employees in the risks that impact them. You're also going to monitor them and their work, make sure that they're working safe and they're following the procedures and practices, and if they're not, then you're holding them accountable. That's just another critical, risky situation that you play a key role in informing us, managing the risk, training others in that risk.
And Ken, I need to be copied on those two when they send them to Frank, because a lot of the times if it's an accident that takes them off of work or whatever, we have all kinds of insurance issues and all of that kind of stuff that we have to deal with. So I do need to be CC'd on it.
Okay,
just so that I'm aware of it.
Okay, our next risky situation is anytime there's a possible harassment situation that's going on. And harassment comes in lots of different forms. It may be bullying, maybe teasing, maybe sexual, maybe someone making sexual comments or creating a hostile work environment for someone. So there's lots of different ways that might come into play. But anytime someone comes to you with a harassment complaint, we want you to immediately take them aside and in confidence and gather their information. What's going on, who, what, where, when, and how. The basic, simple questions, and you just gather the information. We don't want you to respond going out and resolving it immediately with the employees or talking to others or anything. So again, you're just gathering the initial information from the complaint, and then immediately we want you to channel that back to RASA as well. And if RASA is not available, Chuck, or you could even call me, HR service. So, but it's very critical that we deal with these delicately, because how it's handled has high risk legal situations to the organization, as well as high impact to your whole work environment. So again, this is your role is, if you're aware of a harassing situation, bring it to RASA or Chuck's attention. If you're aware of if someone approaches you, gather the information, find out the facts, but don't act on it, don't respond immediately, other than bringing it back to RASA and your team. This is a high critical one that that we need to evaluate and discuss the next steps and the next actions from there. Rasa, anything else you'd add to that?
No, I think, again, they just need to be aware that there is personal responsibility here as a supervisor. If you don't report it, I mean, you were seeing this in the news all the time where the supervisor knew about it but didn't report it to the college president or whatever. But, I mean, it can come back to be a personal suit against you if you're not reporting these things. You know,
yeah,
so
it's critical, and if it's happening to one person, it may be happening to multiple people in your environment. Sometimes you don't even know it. And I would add to that to be aware of the nonverbal stuff that you see going on. You see two people walk by, and you see one of them kind of cringe or walk away. You see stress or conflict. Don't just ignore it. You know, approach the individuals in confidence separately. You know, hey, what's going on? I noticed you walked by so and so. And it seemed like there was tension, or you seemed like you were upset. Tell me what's going on. You know, so something you got to, you know, be aware, be out there with the folks, and also be approachable, so that people are willing to come to you with questions and problems. Listen to people and respond. Okay. So the next one is what I'll call kind of a double thing: corrective action and termination situations. You know, so I think everyone's pretty familiar with the fact that we don't want you to terminate on the spot. So if you have a situation where someone has done something very serious, you can suspend them for the day and send them home, but don't fire them. Don't terminate them. Let cooler minds prevail. Contact Rasa and Chuck. Let's gather the facts, the information, and deal with it from there. And I would say even a written corrective action, same thing there, that we'd like you to get coaching and guidance from Rasa and Chuck or myself before you step in and do the formal corrective action. That doesn't mean you can't give feedback or coaching discussions with somebody without talking to us ahead of time. But whatever point you're ready to do a formal write-up of using a performance improvement plan or something, then I would say talk to us ahead of time and let us coordinate that together with you. What else would you add to that, Rasa?
Well, in fact, terminations cannot be done without Chuck's approval, so it has to come through us, you know, and through a management situation. So, yeah, you can suspend them if you need to, but actually we can't terminate without Chuck's approval.
Great. And same, so if a formal corrective action, you're going to do a written plan with someone, bounce that off Rasa too. You know, just coordinate that with Rasa or Chuck, you know, so that you're getting their feedback and guidance on that too. Again, we're just tools and resources and help for you, so utilize it. You know, take advantage of those things. Okay, the other one I wanted to mention is handling employee complaints. So if an employee comes to you, or you can tell they're negative or upset or bitter about something, same thing there. Gather the facts. Meet with the person. Ask them what's going on. How can we help them? What are their concerns? And do more listening and asking questions than defending and arguing with them. You know, so it's really important to gather the facts and the information. We want people to feel heard and feel like they have a voice, and show that you care. And gather the information. And if it's something that pertains to a policy, a pay challenge, something they're disgruntled about, again, that would be another time to coordinate that with Rasa or Chuck and get their input and information on as well. And then they can get some guidance. And if it's just a complaint about maybe some problem with their work or some situation like that that deals more directly with what you handle, then you go ahead and handle that. But use your judgment there. If there's something that you feel like could potentially fester or get worse, we want to manage. We want to retain our good people. We want to create a good, positive, productive work environment. We want people to be engaged and motivated. So if they're complaining or they're upset about something, that can impact all of those things. So we've got to make sure we're dealing and responding to any kind of employee complaint or problem. Same thing with resolving conflicts or problems between employees or between you and an employee. So if there's any sort of a conflict that's going on out there, that if you can resolve it on your own, great. Talk to the person. I mean, it's a simple strategy. In fact, on another day, we'll talk about how to resolve some of these conflicts, but a very simple strategy is meeting separately with each individual to hear their side of a story, and then helping them understand and accepting some responsibility in it. Because if there's a conflict, usually both of them are doing something where they could do better. And then if you can help them have a discussion, and talking it through and maybe giving them some rules. And I have some good handouts to give people good rules and guidelines on resolving these kind of conflicts. Again, this would probably be another good training discussion for another day. And I've got some good handouts and things. I'll pass those out to you. But I just wanted to mention this is another risky situation that we want you to make sure you're handling it delicately, but don't ignore it. Don't just think that, oh, they'll work it out or go put the gloves on, and then those things fester. I've seen conflicts between two individuals bring down a whole work environment and make the whole group non-productive, negative. Everybody was hating going to work. So we've got to deal with these kinds of things. There's going to be conflicts. There's going to be times where we disagree. Train your people how to disagree without taking it personal or attacking each other. Okay, the other I believe this is the last risky situation I want to talk about is any employment decisions that you're making. We just have to make sure that, so this might be hiring, promotions, corrective actions, terminations, anything dealing with employment. We have to make sure that we're not violating someone's rights, that we're following our process and procedures. So like, with hiring, you've got to have prior approval before you add to headcount. There's certain forms and documents that have to be filled out. So if you hire someone, don't leave Rasa in the dark or let her know way down the road, oh, by the way, I hired someone. She needs to know right away. As soon as you're looking for someone, let Rasa know that you're looking and that you've had approval so that she's anticipating, because there's certain documents, like an I-9 document, has to be filled out within the first 3 days. There's other important forms, W-4, the insurance enrollment, various forms and documents have to occur there. Same thing, be careful that we're not promising promotions or pay increases unless you have formal approval for that, because what you say and do can be binding on the company. You may create some sort of agreement with what you say or what you do or how you handle something, and we just want to make sure that we're all following the process and doing it well. Rasa, what else would you add to this section?
I would just caution, when we're hiring, don't tell people that we do an automatic promotion at 90 days. We have an evaluation process, and they will be evaluated. But by telling them promotions are a 90-day probationary period, that's like guaranteeing them something at 90 days, and we don't want to do that. So we just want to tell them that we have an evaluation process that we do after 90 days.
Great. And we don't even like to necessarily have portrayed that there's a time period that that someone's on a probationary period. It's really not needed in terms of today's work environment. We're an at-will employer. I can let someone go at 30 days, 60 days, 2 years, or 5 years, as long as I haven't violated their rights and I'm not discriminating or I haven't created some agreement that I'm violating. So it's really not necessary to bring someone in and say, hey, I've got your head on the plate for 90 days. I may or may not fire you. I may fire you in 6 months or 6 years, too. So it's not really necessary to create that kind of, it also creates some kind of risk, too, that someone may create some sort of a verbal contract, saying that, hey, you'll be permanent after this. Or so like Rasa said, be careful of what we promise, rather in terms of pay increases or permanency of jobs and that sort of thing, because, again, you create risk. And then we've already talked about corrective actions and terminations, that if you're facing these formally or getting ready, thinking you need to terminate someone, coordinate that back with Rasa and Chuck so that we handle that correctly. So any questions about anything that we've talked about or gone through here? Kind of a quiet group here this morning.
Well, I would just get a comment, Ken. All of these things that you've talked about are places we can get in trouble. And we can get in trouble, or the company can get in trouble. So we just need to make sure that we coordinate with people who like you said, level heads that aren't caught up in the emotion of it, but also people who have the expertise to handle this stuff so that we don't get ourselves or the company in a problem.
Yeah, excellent.
I think one of the most important things I've learned through the years is that you do not have to make, probably 99.9% of the time, you do not have to make a decision this second. And most of us like to, most of us think we know right off what we want to do, but when we sit back and think about it and gather more facts, then things usually change. So I think it's important just to know that you don't have to make that decision right now. You have somebody come in or you find out about something that's happened that is drastic. You don't have to decide if you're going to terminate them or what process you're going to take right at that moment. We have days or 2 or 3 days if we need it to get everything together and to make that decision as a management team. And it's not something that I do alone or usually Chuck does alone. It's usually a group of us that discusses it and gets different opinions. So I think if we can just keep in mind that even if we're angry and mad and, we just need to step back and say, okay, take a day, we're going to figure this, you go home and we'll get in touch with you when we've gathered all the facts and we go through the process of determining, what the truth really is. So I think that's when we make our biggest mistakes, is when we make instant decisions.
And most of us don't make our best decisions under stress or when we're angry. And so, when the emotions are high, and we all have things that trigger us and get us emotional, and when the emotions are high, it's usually better to either kind of calm down or walk away, or like Rasa said, if someone needs to go home for the day, let cooler minds prevail. Let's gather the facts, let's get the information, and then respond rationally so that we handle things right. Great. So we've talked about, several risky situations here today. Things dealing with employment are risky situations, conflict resolutions, how we respond to handling complaints from employees, corrective actions, terminations, handling harassment, accidents and injuries, possible disabilities, and Family Medical Leave Act. So if you haven't run into any of those situations, please don't hesitate to call Rasa, Chuck, myself. Let's make sure that we're dealing with these things correctly and follow the process that we talked about here today. So any other questions or comments?
Thanks, Ken.
Appreciate everybody coming. Thank you for attending. Thanks, Ken. Talk to you
You're welcome.
next time. All right, thanks.